Thank you for joining us today. You've had an incredible near-death experience that you'd like to share with our audience. Can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself? Of course. My name is Rachel Sinclair, and I work as a high school science teacher in a small town in Ohio. I've always been a skeptical, rational person. I teach biology and chemistry after all. But what happened to me a few months ago completely changed my perspective on life, death, and what comes after. What exactly happened to you? Well, it was just an ordinary Saturday morning. I was out for my usual jog around the neighborhood when suddenly I felt a searing pain in my chest. Before I knew it, I collapsed on the sidewalk. Later I found out I'd had a massive heart attack due to an undiagnosed congenital heart defect. That must have been terrifying. What do you remember next? The next thing I knew, I was floating above my body. I could see the paramedics working on me frantically, trying to revive me. But I felt completely calm and at peace. Then I started moving upwards, faster and faster, through a dark tunnel towards a brilliant white light. This sounds like the classic near-death experience that many people report. What happened when you reached the light? When I emerged from the tunnel, I found myself in the most beautiful place I've ever seen. It was like a garden paradise, filled with vibrant colors I'd never seen before and the most heavenly music. The air was filled with love. I could actually feel it surrounding me. Did you encounter anyone there? Yes, I was greeted by my grandmother who had passed away when I was a teenager. She looked so young and radiant. She hugged me and told me how proud she was of the person I'd become. But she said it wasn't my time yet, and that I had an important purpose to fulfill back on Earth. So you knew you would be going back? Not at first. My grandmother said there was something I needed to see first. She took my hand and suddenly we were in a different place. It looked like a vast amphitheater of some kind. That's where I saw Jesus. You actually saw Jesus? What was that like? It's hard to put into words. He radiated the purest love and compassion I've ever felt. His presence filled me with a sense of complete peace and acceptance. He smiled at me and said he wanted to show me something important. What did he show you? He waved his hand and suddenly I could see countless souls all around us. He explained that this was the third heaven, a kind of way station for souls who had recently passed from Earth. I saw that it was divided into different areas. Can you describe what you saw in more detail? Yes, it was fascinating. In one area, I saw souls who seemed to be in a state of peaceful rest. Jesus explained that these were righteous people who had lived good lives. They were waiting for the final resurrection in a place of comfort and tranquility. In another area, there were souls engaged in learning and growth. Jesus said these were people who needed more spiritual development before they could move on to higher realms. They were studying with angelic teachers and working through past mistakes. Were there any other areas you observed? Yes, there was one area that was darker and seemed to be filled with restless, unhappy souls. Jesus explained with great sadness that these were people who had rejected love and goodness in their earthly lives. They weren't being tortured, but they were separated from God's light and love. He said they would have a chance to choose differently at the final judgment. That's quite a vivid description. Did Jesus explain anything else about what you were seeing? He told me that this third heaven was a temporary place, a kind of staging area between earthly life and the final eternal realms. All souls come here immediately after death for a time of reflection, learning, and preparation. The righteous rest in peace and joy, experiencing a foretaste of paradise. Those who need more growth have opportunities to learn and develop spiritually. And even those in the darker areas have a chance for redemption if they choose to turn towards the light. Did you see anyone you recognized besides your grandmother? Yes, I saw my childhood best friend who had died of cancer when we were in college. She was in the learning area, and she seemed so happy and at peace. She told me she was working through some of her past regrets and learning to forgive herself. I also saw a distant cousin who had struggled with addiction in life. He was in one of the darker areas, but I saw angels gently trying to reach out to him. Jesus told me there's always hope for every soul, no matter how far they've strayed. This is truly remarkable. Did Jesus tell you why he was showing you all of this? Yes, he said he wanted me to bring a message back to Earth. He said too many people are either afraid of death or else think that nothing happens after we die. He wanted me to tell people that there is so much more waiting for us, that death is not the end, but a transition to continued growth and ultimate joy if we choose it. He also emphasized the importance of how we live our earthly lives. Every act of kindness, every choice for love over hate, every moment of forgiveness, it all matters and shapes our souls for eternity. That's a powerful message. How did your experience end? Jesus told me it wasn't my time yet, that I still had important work to do on earth. He said I needed to share what I had seen to give people hope. Then my grandmother hugged me one last time, and suddenly I was rushing back down the tunnel. The next thing I knew, I was gasping for air as the paramedics shocked me back to life with a defibrillator. I later found out I had been clinically dead for over 10 minutes. How has this experience changed you? It's changed everything. I'm no longer afraid of death. I know now that it's just a doorway to something more beautiful than we can imagine. But I also have a new appreciation for this earthly life and the opportunities it gives us to grow and love. I'm much more compassionate now. Knowing that every person I meet is an eternal soul on a journey helps me to be more patient and kind. I try to see people the way Jesus sees them, with unconditional love and endless hope for their potential. Speaking of the messages you brought back, can you elaborate on what Jesus told you about the importance of our earthly lives? Certainly. One of the most profound things Jesus showed me was how our choices and actions in this life directly shape our souls and our experiences after death. It's not about following a set of rigid religious rules. It's about growing in love, compassion, and wisdom. Every time we choose forgiveness over resentment, generosity over selfishness, or courage over fear, we're aligning our souls more closely with the divine love that is the source of all life. These choices don't just affect our external circumstances, they literally shape the essence of who we are as eternal beings. That's a powerful concept. Did you see how this played out in the afterlife realms you witnessed? Yes, it was fascinating. The souls in the peaceful, joyful areas were those who had cultivated love and wisdom in their earthly lives. They weren't perfect people, but they had consistently tried to grow and to treat others with kindness and respect. The souls in the learning areas were often good people who still had some issues to work through. Maybe they struggled with forgiveness, or had been too focused on material success at the expense of relationships. They were eager to learn and grow. The souls in the darker areas were those who had consistently chosen selfishness, cruelty, or apathy towards others. But even they weren't condemned forever. I saw angels and more advanced souls gently trying to awaken the spark of divine love within them. It sounds like there's hope for everyone. Absolutely. That was one of Jesus' main messages to me. No one is beyond redemption. Even the souls in the darkest places have the divine spark within them, and they always have the choice to turn towards the light. It might take longer for some, but love never gives up on anyone. Have you encountered any skepticism when sharing your story? Oh, absolutely. As a science teacher, I know how incredible this all sounds. If it hadn't happened to me, I'm not sure I would believe it myself. I've had colleagues and even some family members dismiss it as a hallucination caused by lack of oxygen to my brain. But I know what I experienced was real. It was more real than anything I've ever known in this physical life. And the messages of love, hope, and the eternal nature of our souls are too important not to share, even if some people doubt. I'd like to ask about a few more specific details from your experience. Did Jesus show you anything about different levels of heaven? Yes, actually. Jesus explained that there are multiple levels or dimensions of heaven. He specifically mentioned that what I saw was the third heaven, which is like an initial way station for souls after death. He said there are higher realms beyond this, each more glorious than the last. This reminded me of something I learned later when I was researching my experience. In the Book of Enoch, which isn't part of the standard Bible but is considered important in some traditions, Enoch describes being taken through 10 different heavens. Jesus confirmed that there are indeed multiple celestial realms, each serving different purposes in the spiritual evolution of souls. That's fascinating. Did you see anything that corresponded to ideas of paradise or Eden? Yes, I did. In the peaceful area of the third heaven, there was a section that was indescribably beautiful, like the most perfect garden you could imagine, but more vibrant and alive than anything on earth. Jesus referred to this as a reflection of Eden or paradise. He showed me a special tree there, which he called the tree of life. It was unlike any tree I've ever seen. It seemed to glow from within and its fruit looked like it was made of gold and precious gems. Jesus said this tree is a source of spiritual nourishment for souls in that realm. Wow, that's a vivid image. Now, you mentioned earlier that you saw some darker areas in this realm. Can you elaborate on that? Yes, it was a sobering part of the experience. There was an area that felt colder and darker. I could see souls there who seemed distressed or lost. Jesus explained that these were individuals who had turned away from love and light in their earthly lives. He emphasized that this wasn't a place of eternal torture like traditional concepts of hell. Rather, it was a state these souls had chosen through their actions and attitudes in life. But he showed me that even here, there were angels and more advanced souls working to reach out to these troubled spirits, always offering a path back to the light. Did Jesus mention anything about the specific sins or actions that might lead souls to these darker areas? He did, and it aligns with what's described in the Book of Enoch. He mentioned things like dishonoring God, corruption, sorcery, oppression of the poor, and various forms of injustice. But he stressed that the purpose of showing souls the consequences of these actions is always redemptive, never purely punitive. That's a powerful image. Did Jesus say anything about judgment or accountability for our actions? He did, and it was different from what many of us imagine. He showed me that judgment isn't about a deity punishing us for our sins. Instead, it's a process of self-realization. When we pass over, we experience a life review where we see and feel the consequences of all our actions, not just on ourselves, but on everyone we interact with. It's like a moment of perfect clarity where we understand the true impact of every choice we made. For souls who lived with love and kindness, this is a beautiful, affirming experience. For those who caused harm to others, it can be very difficult to face. But the purpose is always growth and healing, never punishment for its own sake. That's intriguing. Did you see anything related to the concept of corruptibility and incorruptibility mentioned in the Book of Enoch? Yes, I did. Jesus showed me that the third heaven exists in a state between what Enoch called corruptibility and incorruptibility. It's a transitional realm where souls are shedding the corruptible aspects of their earthly nature and moving towards a more pure, incorruptible spiritual state. This process happens gradually as souls learn and grow. The original text mentioned some specific features of this realm from the Book of Enoch. Did you see any of these? Absolutely. I saw the sweet-flowering trees Enoch described, with their incredible fragrance. There were also 2 springs that Jesus pointed out, one flowing with honey and milk, the other with oil and wine. These weren't literal earthly substances, but rather represented spiritual nourishment and healing for the souls there. I also saw the fiery river that Enoch mentioned. Jesus explained that this river of fire wasn't for punishment, but for purification. Souls voluntarily immerse themselves in it to burn away negative energies and purify their essence. Were there any other specific details from Enoch's account that you witnessed? Yes, I saw the place Enoch described where the Lord rests when he goes up into paradise. It was an indescribably beautiful location, filled with a palpable sense of divine presence. The tree of life was there, just as Enoch described it, of ineffable goodness and fragrance. I also witnessed the cruel darkness and unilluminated gloom that Enoch mentioned in relation to the areas for unrighteous souls. But as I said before, Jesus emphasized that these areas are temporary states, not eternal punishment. You mentioned earlier that Jesus told you about a final judgment. Can you tell us more about that? Yes, Jesus explained that the third heaven I saw was an intermediate state. Eventually, there will be a time of resurrection and final judgment for all souls. But it's not like a courtroom scene with a harsh judge, the way it's often depicted. Instead, it's a moment of complete clarity where each soul fully understands the consequences of all their choices and actions. In that moment of truth, faced with the full reality of divine love, each soul chooses whether to embrace that love and move forward into even greater realms of joy and growth, or to reject it and remain separate. That's quite different from traditional views of judgment and heaven or hell. It is. Jesus was clear that God doesn't send anyone to hell. But we can choose to separate ourselves from love and light. Even then, the opportunity for redemption always remains open, although the path back might be longer and more difficult the further we stray. The key is that we're always free to choose. God's love is constantly inviting us towards joy and growth, but never forcing. You've mentioned several times that there are realms beyond the third heaven you saw. Did Jesus give you any insight into what those are like? He didn't show me those higher realms directly. He said it would be too overwhelming for me to comprehend in my current state. But he did say that beyond the intermediate realms are dimensions of indescribable beauty, love, and creative potential. He said that souls who have fully aligned themselves with divine love continue to grow and evolve, taking on greater responsibilities in the cosmic order. Some become what we might call angels, helping to guide and protect others. Some are involved in the creation of new worlds and new forms of life. The ultimate goal, he said, is for each soul to fully realize its divine nature and participate in the ongoing creation and expansion of love throughout the universe. That's a breathtaking vision. Did Jesus say anything about how this relates to different religious traditions on earth? Yes, and this was really beautiful. He showed me that all genuine spiritual paths are leading towards the same ultimate truth, just describing it in different ways based on culture and context. He said that he has appeared to different people in different forms throughout history, always trying to awaken them to the reality of divine love. Whether people call this ultimate reality God, Allah, Brahman, the Tao, or something else, it all points to the same source. The core truths, that love is the fundamental reality of the universe, that we are all interconnected, that our souls are eternal and ever-evolving, these are found in all authentic spiritual teachings. That's a very inclusive view. Did he say anything about why there's so much religious conflict on earth if all paths are leading to the same place? He did address this, with what I can only describe as a mixture of sadness and compassionate understanding. He said that the conflict comes when people mistake the finger pointing at the moon for the moon itself, when they become more attached to their particular religious forms and beliefs than to the underlying reality of love those beliefs are meant to point towards. He also showed me how negative spiritual forces, what some might call demons or dark entities, work to distort religious teachings and turn them into sources of division and hatred. But he emphasized that light is always stronger than darkness, and that even these negative forces will eventually be redeemed by love. This is all so profound, Rachel. I'm curious, did Jesus give you any specific messages for people of different faiths or for those who don't believe in any religion? Yes, he did. For Christians, he emphasized that his core message was always about love, love for God and love for one's neighbor, which includes everyone. He said too many of his followers have become distracted by doctrinal arguments or political power struggles, losing sight of the simple but challenging path of radical love and forgiveness he taught. For people of other faiths, he expressed deep respect for their traditions and said that sincere followers of any path who truly practice compassion and seek wisdom are very close to his heart. He said he appears in different forms to different cultures, and that the name or form doesn't matter as much as the willingness to open one's heart to divine love. For atheists and skeptics, he showed great compassion. He said many of them are reacting against distorted or harmful versions of religion they've encountered. He honors their commitment to truth and said that an honest atheist who treats others with kindness is closer to God than a religious person who uses their faith as a weapon. His message for everyone, regardless of belief, was simple: love one another. Treat each person you encounter as if they were the most precious being in the universe, because in the grand scheme of things, they are. Those are beautiful messages. Now, I have to ask, since you've had this experience, do you no longer fear death at all? That's a great question. I would say that I no longer fear what comes after death. I know now that it's a transition to something more beautiful than we can imagine. But I do still have a healthy respect for the dying process itself. I know it can involve physical pain or emotional struggles as we let go of this life. More importantly, I have a much deeper appreciation for this earthly life now. I understand that our time here is precious and that we have unique opportunities for growth and for touching others' lives that we won't have in quite the same way on the other side. So while I look forward with joy to what comes next, I'm also fully committed to making the most of every day I have here, to loving deeply, to learning constantly, and to trying to make a positive difference in whatever way I can. That's a beautiful perspective. Now, I'm sure many of our listeners are wondering, did your experience give you any insight into some of the big questions people have about the afterlife? For instance, do our pets go to heaven? Yes, that's a question I've gotten a lot. I'm happy to say that yes, I did see animals in the afterlife realms. Jesus explained that all life is sacred and that the souls of animals do continue on after death. They might not progress in the same way human souls do, but they absolutely experience joy and love on the other side. I had a wonderful reunion with my childhood dog. He was so excited to see me, just bounding with energy and love. It was a beautiful reminder of the eternal nature of the bonds we form, even with our animal companions. That's heartwarming to hear. What about other common questions? Do we reunite with loved ones? Do soulmates exist? Yes to both. I saw many joyful reunions between family members and friends who had passed on. The love between souls is one of the most beautiful things in the afterlife realms. It's purer than anything we experience here, unclouded by ego or fear. As for soulmates, it's a bit more complex than the way it's often portrayed in movies or books. Jesus showed me that we have many souls that we're deeply connected to, not just a single other half. These might be romantic partners, family members, close friends, or even people we only briefly encounter but have a profound impact on. Often, groups of souls incarnate together over many lifetimes, playing different roles for each other to help each other learn and grow. So your soulmate in one life might be your child, parent, friend, or even adversary in another. The key is that all these relationships serve to teach us about love in its many forms. And in the afterlife, we have the chance to see the bigger picture and understand the true purpose behind all our earthly connections. That's fascinating. You mentioned multiple lifetimes. Did Jesus confirm the reality of reincarnation? He did, but with some important clarifications. Reincarnation is an option for souls who choose it as a path for further growth and learning. But it's not a mandatory cycle we're trapped in, the way some Eastern philosophies teach. Some souls do choose to reincarnate many times to have a wide range of experiences and to work through different lessons. Others might only incarnate a few times. And some highly advanced souls choose to incarnate to help others, even though they don't need it for their own growth. Jesus said that Earth is like a particularly intensive school for souls. The density and challenges of physical life provide unique opportunities for growth that aren't available in the same way in the higher realms. But it's always a choice, and souls can choose other paths of growth and service in the spiritual realms if they prefer. This is all so intriguing, Rachel. Did Jesus give you any insights into the purpose of human life on Earth? Yes, he did. He explained that Earth is like a crucible for souls, a place of intense experiences that forge our spiritual growth. The main purpose of our time here is to learn to love more deeply and wisely, to overcome the illusion of separation, and to realize our true divine nature. He showed me that the challenges and suffering we face on Earth aren't punishments, but opportunities. Every difficult situation is a chance to choose love over fear, forgiveness over resentment, courage over complacency. These choices literally shape our souls. Jesus also emphasized the importance of free will. He said that God could have created beings that automatically loved and obeyed, but that wouldn't be true love. By giving us free will and placing us in a world of duality and challenges, we have the opportunity to choose love authentically and to co-create our reality. That's profound. It gives a whole new perspective on why we might face difficulties in life. Exactly. And it's important to note that Jesus wasn't dismissing the very real pain and suffering people experience. He showed incredible compassion for human suffering. But he also showed me how even the darkest experiences can ultimately serve our highest good if we approach them with courage and openness. He also stressed that we're never alone in our struggles. There are always spiritual beings, guardian angels, spirit guides, and evolved souls, working to support and guide us, even when we can't perceive them directly. Speaking of spiritual beings, did you encounter any others besides Jesus during your experience? Yes, I did. Besides my grandmother and the souls I mentioned earlier, I saw countless angelic beings. They were incredibly beautiful, beings of pure light and love. Some appeared in forms similar to traditional depictions of angels, while others were more abstract, like swirling patterns of colored light. Jesus explained that there's a vast hierarchy of spiritual beings, each with different roles in the cosmic order. Some focus on guiding and protecting individual souls, others work on planetary or galactic levels, and some are involved in the very process of creation itself. I also saw beings that seemed to be from other worlds or dimensions. Jesus confirmed that the universe is teeming with life, much of it in forms we can hardly imagine. He said that as souls evolve, they have the opportunity to explore and interact with many different realms and forms of existence. That's mind-blowing. Did Jesus say anything about extraterrestrial life visiting Earth? He did touch on that. He said that yes, Earth has been visited by beings from other worlds throughout its history. Some have been beneficial, some neutral, and some with less positive intentions. But he emphasized that humanity's spiritual growth has to come from within. No external force, benevolent or otherwise, can do the work for us. He also said that as humanity evolves spiritually and technologically, we'll have more open contact with other civilizations. But that will only happen when we've reached a level of spiritual maturity where we can handle such interactions wisely. Fascinating. Now, I'm sure many of our listeners are wondering, did Jesus give you any information about future events on Earth? He did show me some glimpses of potential futures, but he was very clear that the future is not set in stone. Our collective choices shape the path we take as a species. He showed me that humanity is at a crucial turning point. We have the potential to create either a beautiful future of harmony with each other and our planet, or to continue down a path of destruction. The choice is ours. He did say that regardless of the specific path we take, Earth and humanity will ultimately experience a great spiritual awakening. But our choices now determine how smooth or difficult that transition will be. Did he give any advice on how we can positively influence this future? Yes, and it was beautifully simple. He said the most powerful thing each of us can do is to work on our own spiritual growth and to practice love in our daily lives. Every act of kindness, every choice for forgiveness, every moment of standing up for what's right, it all contributes to the positive evolution of humanity as a whole. He also stressed the importance of taking care of our beautiful planet. He showed me that Earth is a living being with its own spiritual essence, and that our treatment of the environment has profound spiritual implications. That's powerful. It really emphasizes how our individual choices matter in the grand scheme of things. Absolutely. And that was one of the most impactful parts of my experience. Seeing how every thought, word, and action creates ripples that affect not just our own lives, but the entire cosmic web of existence, it gives a whole new level of meaning and responsibility to how we live our lives. Indeed. Now, I'm curious, has your experience changed how you approach your work as a science teacher? That's a great question. It's definitely given me a broader perspective on the nature of reality. I still teach the scientific method and evidence-based thinking, those are crucial skills. But I also try to instill in my students a sense of wonder and openness to possibilities beyond our current scientific understanding. I encourage them to question everything, including their own assumptions, and to approach the mysteries of the universe with both rigorous skepticism and open-minded curiosity. I share with them how the greatest scientists in history were often deeply spiritual people who saw their work as a way of understanding the mind of God. Most importantly, I try to convey that science and spirituality aren't opposites, they're complementary ways of exploring the incredible universe we live in. That's a beautiful approach. Now, we're nearing the end of our time, but I have to ask, what would you say to someone who's skeptical about near-death experiences like yours? I completely understand skepticism. As I mentioned, I was a skeptic myself before this happened to me. I would say, keep an open mind, but do your own research. There's a growing body of scientific literature on near-death experiences, including cases where people have accurately reported events that happened while they were clinically dead. But more importantly, I would encourage people to look at the effects of these experiences. Study after study has shown that people who have NDEs, regardless of their prior beliefs, tend to become more loving, less materialistic, and less afraid of death. They often make major positive changes in their lives and dedicate themselves to helping others. If this were just a hallucination caused by a dying brain, why would it have such profound and lasting positive effects? Ultimately, though, I recognize that this is something that has to be experienced to be fully understood. I don't expect everyone to believe my story. But I hope that sharing it might open some hearts and minds to the possibility that there's more to our existence than what we can perceive with our physical senses. That's a very balanced perspective. As we wrap up, what would you say is the most important message you want people to take away from your experience? The most important message is simply this: you are loved beyond measure. Each and every one of us is an eternal being of immense value and potential. No matter what you've done or what you've been through, you are worthy of love and capable of growth. This life is a precious opportunity. Use it to love deeply, to learn constantly, to forgive freely, and to help others whenever you can. Don't be afraid to face your shadows and heal your wounds. That's how we grow. And remember, death is not the end. It's a transition to something more beautiful than we can imagine. But don't use that as an excuse to neglect this life. Our time here is incredibly valuable, and the choices we make shape our eternal journey. Lastly, trust in the process of life. Even when things seem dark or difficult, know that you're on a journey of growth and that you're never alone. There is always hope, always a path back to love, no matter how far we may have strayed. Thank you so much, Rachel. Those are beautiful and inspiring words to end on. Your experience and insights have given us all a lot to think about. Thank you for allowing me to share my story. I hope it brings some comfort, hope, and inspiration to your listeners.